Okay, you've been practicing now for
3 weeks.
For 3 full weeks.
Yeah.
And to preface, you tell the listener what you previously did for a living. What did you do? And what did you teach in a nutshell?
I am a naturopath, and combined with that, a nutritionist and a craniosacral therapist. And I do coaching, spiritual coaching. So that's what I've been doing for 25 years. So
it's like a calling. So when you came in,
it is a calling for sure.
Yeah, it calls you. So you came in and you're thinking you're getting married.
I'm getting married,
and
it was actually it was a very, like, I would say, a more superficial kind of innocent inquiry that I've put some weight on my body, that I've historically not been overweight in my life, and 3 years of I had a bad car accident, severe chronic pain for 3 years that had more to do with falling apart, working too hard, being a single mom, lots of medications, started just genuinely healing, getting off all those medications, and my body just kind of blew up. But I think, not looking deeper than that, that was my story about it.
Oh, we hear lots of stories.
Okay, so, but always. There was an idea that I knew I had a story, but the story really, I was attached to the story because I could use the pain as kind of it's a way of explaining maybe not feeling so bad that I'd gained some weight. I mean, I knew that I was making the story,
but it was comfortable, so you keep the story. It was
comfortable, and it kept people engaged in that ongoing, like, poor Elise. Oh, we knew Elise has had it so hard. Her body finally fell apart, and now look, she's trying to put herself back
and you
together.
have something to blame.
Yeah, I have
because as a practitioner and a nutritionist who is helping people, it's not your fault. It's gluten. It's the sugar. It's the stress. The stress makes it happen.
Well, interestingly enough, this is why this is so good for me. See, I don't practice that way.
Well, tell me. Okay, so really quick, this is so important for the listener to hear because what I teach,
I don't give.
Completely dismantles the majority of people out there who say it's something else's fault.
Yes.
Right? So you work with someone who teaches. What's their main focus?
Well, I work with someone who does work from that paradigm, actually, from that place where, if your body isn't working, it's an external problem that we need to remove that external problem, and then you'll have perfection. And what's fascinating is that I don't work that way, but I don't give that to myself. And what has been wildly interesting about meeting you and doing this protocol is there was a part of me that knew that I was giving what I wanted, but I actually didn't even know how to give myself that.
No, well,
I don't know how to...
This is the part I want you to explain. You were teaching classes, and the main focus of the class was, this is what you're teaching.
Oh, yes.
Explain in a very, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, the shtick.
The shtick was... I was teaching a nutrition class with a woman I shared space with that basically, we would pick different topics, but it would be like hormones causing weight gain, but it wasn't like the hormones we're talking about here. We're talking about too much cortisol and how to offset the cortisol, or do a gluten-free diet and lose 30 pounds, or
so it's the context.
Everybody's allergic to dairy, and that's why we have obesity, or everybody is eating corn syrup, and corn syrup's in everything, and that's why we have obesity. It was never it wasn't patient-centered.
It wasn't personal. It wasn't
No.
centered around the patient. It was
No.
centered around a set of controls. And there's very little accountability. So
There was no accountability except for people I noticed. So it was ironic. But I noticed people walking away feeling a lot of blame and shame. And not talking about why that would get triggered. Or
no. Well, so they leave vulnerable. They don't leave feeling more secure. They leave feeling more like I have to be I have to manage better. I have to control better. I have to think about the work involved in trying to control from the outside.
I feel like I was watching people get set up.
Yeah. Yes.
And it triggered something in me. And I'm sitting here teaching this.
Well, and then you would go hide, right? Remember you were like
I would go hide. I'd go leave. I would leave on break, and I didn't even know this though until I started working with you. The contraction that was happening inside my own being, inside my own spirit. I mean, I knew intuitively that this was wrong, and so I would leave on break and say I forgot my lunch, or I have to run an errand, and I would like
go get
like a double latte with extra whipped cream. But the thing was it was
after you just said dairy is the devil. It's the root of all sin.
It was, and the thing is that I had never found myself actually co-teaching. I got caught up in the ego aspect of teaching, even though I didn't even look at the content. And while I was doing this, I was having my own triggers.
Emotionally,
spiritually. And then I was walking away going, how can I be doing this?
Guilt, shame, guilt, shame.
And then there was tension being built between me and the person I share space with, because I started kind of intuiting, like maybe
Didn't it feel a little too much judgy? I mean,
it was all about judgment and control.
Yeah, and it had nothing to do with reality.
No, it had nothing to do with reality. Everybody has Lyme's disease. Everybody's allergic to gluten. Everybody's allergic to dairy. And here I am feeling like I am sitting in a prison without being totally self-aware of it. Knowing something's wrong, but not knowing how it was affecting me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, here
all I can say is every day I drank more and more bad things and
shame and guilt, hiding.
And I wouldn't even eat lunch. So no, what was fascinating is I was so actually I'm here, I'm teaching this, right? I became so afraid of food and started like leaving, chain smoking, driving around my office. This is a true story. I would get in my car, which is a convertible. So if it was nice out, I'd put my top down. I'd drive around for the 30 minutes we had a lunch, and I would chain smoke and smoke a latte. And if I had enough time, I'd go get another one just to get it in so that I could manage being in my space with...
Well, your partner, the person you were working with, has an obsessive compulsive addiction to the diet that she believes in, right? She believes in this, like she is, when you, so, okay,
when we say it out loud though, Robin, like when we encapsulate it like that, and then I actually tell you that what I was doing, which was like driving around in my car, I literally would drive in my car around the neighborhood, because they're just up the road here, around, listen to music.
Try to figure out why you felt so awful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do want to make sure that I state that it's not the information so much. Look at you're now. How did I not see this? It's not the information that is harmful. It's how it was presented.
Right.
Because we could look at celiacs and gluten. We could sit there and go, you know what? There are certain scenarios where this can be very harmful for people. Listen to your body. If you have this response, absolutely, you want to make sure that you're listening and caring for the body. If you have wheat and you feel like shit, you might want to listen to that. But it's this fear-based proselytizing and the assumption, right, that it is who's presenting the information at the top? Usually the integrity is presented at the top. So how people learn it and the way it's heard at the top is where things can be passed down through the line. So the partner you were with obviously heard this through a fear-based gunshot. That's a sign the integrity is not lined up. It's not coming from an open state or a higher state of consciousness. It's coming from a lower state of control.
And the interesting thing is just to add a piece, and this has really been the discovery of the last 3 weeks. So it wasn't, I'm actually grateful for the experience.
Yeah. Well, you get to see that. You have a whole nother angle or view of an experience that's tangible from the inside of it. You know where the dangers lie in that context of how you guys were teaching it.
Yeah, right? And the bigger danger for me isn't just I think some of the damage we did, which I do believe that.
Tell me what type of damage was done with what you guys were teaching. Tell me, because you experienced it firsthand for yourself, but you saw how many people in...
Well, we would have classes that were, 40 people at a time.
40 people at a time for a few years?
We had just started them, actually. So we had only been doing them for about 6 months, and we would do them once every 2 weeks. We would take these groups through.
Got it.
And so, the bigger damage was why I showed up, why I decided to do this. I typically have worked independently, one-on-one, with bio-individuality to keep the peace. She wanted to do this. And the bigger thing that I noticed, and it's kind of hard to put it into a context now, but I have caretaked so much over the years to stop conflict. I don't like conflict. I am conflict avoidant to the umpteenth degree. And when she presented this, I somehow didn't feel like I had a choice. And I feel like the damage that we provided to people was that they didn't have a choice.
Yeah, it was shame,
fear.
Yeah. There's no alternative. You treat it's like treating something like it's like the root of all evil, right? Like if you have a bite of this, you're prone to like a cocaine.
No, she
addiction.
Actually said, when I finally stopped, the last thing she said is, someone had raised their hand in class, and this was a week after I saw you, and they said, I'm really struggling with this gluten-free diet. And I find that something about maybe I just need to slowly wean, just to integrate this into my whole life. It's my kids.
Which is totally realistic approach, right?
Yes. And she said, the wheat you ate this week was all for naught. You've just set yourself back a year. And that was when I called you and said, I got myself into trouble. And then it was like an explosion of my pattern.
How do you think that person felt when she heard that?
I actually did a big no, which is, when you're not supposed to, kind of supposed to be a team player,
So,
approaching. And then when we left, I walked out and I pulled her aside and I just said, I just want you to know I won't be teaching this class anymore, and I just want you to know that it is not all for naught. And I want you to know that whatever you are doing right now, and really I got this from you.
Which is fine with me. Repeat it.
For where you are right now, you are doing the best that you can do. And just trust your body. Begin to have a relationship with your body. Talk to your body. And, what is crazy is that I really lost... I'm going to forgive myself because I understand why I got into this, and I was doing the best I can do.
And you felt like it was good, right? When you look at the how people present the information with all of this fear-based, even science that comes across like extremism science, why would you question it, right?
And I think...
But it conflicts with the reality, right? It's not matching reality. What we see in reality is not equal to what we're reading.
So against, I can see my pattern. When you get sick, for me, it wasn't originally weight loss. I was very thin, actually. And I had my colleague was telling me that my migraines, and I was in a car accident, but she said, no, you have Lyme's disease. And the car accident actually... Lyme's disease can lay dormant, and so after this trauma, the Lyme's disease went like rampant in your body, and now you can't eat gluten, sugar, dairy, and I bought into it.
Yeah, well, because it's at least something worth trying.
It was.
But did you notice a pattern that Lyme's disease is what she blamed for everybody's problems? And so
Yes.
gluten was everybody's problem
Yes.
and dairy. So everybody had the same exact disorder and everybody should have the same exact diet. Oh my gosh.
And no one should drink tap water because it's fluoride and it dumbs you down. And I found myself...
There's so much fear. Like you can't live in your body. And you know what you're really telling? You know what you're really preaching? Your body sucks. It's not capable. It can't handle life. So we have to control it with all of these supplements I'm going to have you take. And we're going to control it with this, anger and ferocity about just reality.
Yeah,
so,
I'm still a little shell-shocked only in the sense of, I mean, I can do damage control in my own life, and I can realign myself back to some basic values, which is I teach bioindividuality, and I mostly like to teach what we've been talking about, and I really lost my way for a while. However, in the process of losing my way, I think I got something through this process, through weight loss apocalypse, which I haven't even done yet, but I have lost a few pounds.
Who gives a crap?
Yeah.
What we're working on is so stinking valuable.
It is. No, I realized that it was the greatest gift because, truthfully, I may have been providing, and I would say if you asked any of my clients, they would say Elise is the most non-judgmental person. She is loving. She is kind. She helps me deal with, forgiving myself. Now, what kills me, and I'm still in shell shock over it. Forget the nutrition classes, forget my partner. That's her stuff. She can that's her path.
Yes. And she'll figure out what's going on her own.
Whatever works for her, it's the best she is doing. However, through this process, I've realized that as much as I've been able to give this to people, it has not been authentically given to myself. And I honestly did not realize that a good portion of why I was doing that, why I was able to be judgmental and loving and kind and help people through that, is not only did I need that and want that and not even know how to give that to myself, but I also was really needing the ego boost, because it's great to have people tell you how loving you are. Mm-hmm. Especially if you come from a family where you didn't get that. Yeah,
and to be able to yes, so it was
and so there was something genuine about what I was doing.
Yeah, but it
wasn't coming from a, there's a
you had an attachment to their response.
Major attachment.
So that attachment to their response changes how you present your information.
Major
So you're
attachment.
projecting. It is a form of manipulation. Even though we could look at it and say this really does come from a sincere integrity. Like this is a loving communication. But ultimately, if you're seeking the validation on the back end, you are projecting, and it is a form of manipulation. When I say manipulation, a lot of people think that it's
no, I don't hear you.
You're hurting someone, right? No, you're not trying to hurt someone, but you're trying to get what you need out of their reaction. So it's not.
I think it's manipulation because you're hurt.
Well,
you know what I mean? Not that you're trying to hurt anybody, but it's coming from a hurt, like
void.
If you're deficient, I mean, I have some deficiencies, a lot of deficiencies from like love and getting validation from family.
It is in your perspective.
I'm 43 years old. It's time to realize that I can actually give this to myself, and I feel like in a way I'm learning to walk.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm like learning to walk. I'm learning how to have.
Well, when was the last time you had complete spiritual autonomy to where it was fulfilled within itself?
I think when I went on a retreat where everything was in a really controlled situation and it was like,
But was it the retreat that you attached to?
Exactly.
So you weren't autonomous. That's what I meant. Like complete spiritual autonomy where it was you that was fulfilling yourself without any medicinals, without any
No.
healers or guidance or anything,
No.
where it's just you looking straight into the heart of the soul and retrieving it for yourself.
No, I think I've had moments of thinking about it. I've had moments of even having those theoretical, that I'm theorizing my spiritual awareness. I'm theorizing. And what I mean by theorizing is...
It's like reading it in a book out here,
good.
right?
Yeah, it all sounded good, but when it came to actually, what is that saying? I can't even think of it.
Well, it's like
matter.
reading a book
It's like chop wood, carry water. It's like I couldn't... It's like the ABCs. It's like I feel like this process has been about everybody out, simplify, really very lovingly and caringly just start the conversation. The conversation is what helps make the walk happen.
with yourself.
Yeah,
and you're just
no one else.
Well, and you have to tell yourself the truth.
Just me and my divine self.
Yeah,
Honest
and
to
you
God.
and you have to take all of that ego and all of that idea about being better than within yourself. Who cares about being better than someone else? When you're playing the better game within yourself, you have to stop and say, okay, now what's the freaking truth? Where am I at emotionally? And that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Don't try to be something that doesn't exist. You're not there. Why would you want to, if your spirit is here, that there's nothing wrong with that. It's when you think it should be here and then you feel bad about where you're at,
right,
is where the problem occurs. It's like, I tell this to, I've had tons of clients who they do spiritual work and they're working on the spirit, right? They're reading as many books as they can. They are invested. At this point, they should be completely translated. They should be...
like levitating.
Yes, they'll say that. They'll be like, Robin. There's like, I can read it, I can hear it, but I can't create it. I don't know how to create this.
Right.
Well, it's because you think it's
out there,
up here, and
yeah.
you're down here. In reality, it's where you're at, and that's where it's created. It doesn't require anything other than taking your mind's eye and getting and being. It takes so much humility, and I think that's the hardest part, to tell yourself the truth. The truth is that you've held yourself to some alternative reality that doesn't exist, and you put that alternative reality on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And then you attached yourself to the pedestal, and it was an illusion of security, an illusion of grandeur about it, the grandeur of it.
Oh,
so to be able to go, well, the truth is that I'm in this spot, in this area, wherever it is, in this little orb, whatever that is. And that's really the truth of the minimalist of it all. That if you take everything out, the truth of the nothingness around it, what's left is where that's the only thing that's true. Everything else is an illusion.
Yes.
So when you think of the humility it takes to say, I'm not this religion. That religion is not who I am. I am not this belief system. I am not Lyme's disease. I am not gluten. I am not health and well-being. I'm not even a spiritual healer.
I'm not even an
I am just
health practitioner.
Yes, you knew it was coming.
Yes. No,
I'm just this spirit who is in it of itself, God.
Yeah.
I have been created. I am created. I am what has been created by the Creator,
yeah,
which is one and the same.
It is.
And
I absolutely, for me, that works. And to me, that resonates.
And that is good enough.
That is all I know.
Yep, and that integrity.
For right now.
That's what I know. That's pretty much all I know too, which is I have in this integrity. It's not even my integrity. It's an integrity that is hardwired. And everybody has it. The problem is
shocking to me. I think that there's like several shock waves that have happened in my life in the last 3 weeks. Obviously that one encapsulated on multiple levels. the humility part has been another shockwave.
That is the most important part to get there, right? You have to have so much humility to admit the false, right? Or to just admit that it was an illusion.
And that piece, of course, if you're ego bound, even if you aren't aware of it, it's very hard to have humility because you don't even know that you need to have humility.
Well, you have to defend your position.
Totally, which is funny because I can be an extremely defensive person, although I've improved. What's interesting now is humility. So it's like that awareness plus, like, it's almost like a mathematical equation. I've decided it's like self-awareness plus humility equals grace. Because in the last 3 weeks, I have had, I would call small miracles in my life. Like things that I actually did not think were humanly possible after the pain that I've been through with certain people in my life. I didn't think there would ever be a day where there could be a conversation. I didn't think there would ever be a day where there could be a meeting of the minds, whether it was even agreeing to disagree, but there can be peace and grace in that relationship. I have healed some things with my ex-husband, who I haven't talked to in 5 years. I had a miraculous week with my daughter, who I don't think ever felt safe enough to talk to me because of my defensiveness. And
humility does a lot, doesn't it?
And what was fascinating is I thought I had it. See, that's the third shockwave. Like, I actually thought I had these things, but they were all based on, it was an attachment though. I still had an agenda going into all these relationships. My job, my relationship with my kids,
it's securing codependency, right?
Yeah.
And we can be like we can be covered. The veil can be there because we think that we're not hurting anybody. We're not doing anything, but you're it's like that manipulation. It all comes back to feeling secure.
It is.
So as someone who works with people, you have to completely separate.
Yeah.
If you don't need their validation, now tell me what happens to your gift.
Oh, it's so unencumbered. It doesn't
even, it's like you just provide.
And
there's no need in the return of anything, right? Because the reward is in the provision of you sharing.
Right.
What is being streamed, right?
Which is why I know there are very few universal truths. And if you had asked me a few weeks ago what I was going to do, I'd be like, well, I'd like to lose 20 pounds before my wedding. And
then you came in and you were like, oh.
Bait and switch, which was hilarious. But the other piece that I've noticed with my profession is I go to work now, there's no wait. I didn't even realize what was part of my exhaustion. I always go back to my car accident. It wasn't. It was the 50 million thousand pound, I am responsible for the people that I see. I am responsible for their well-being. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight, honey.
So why would I be on time? Why would I mean, there was a time where I didn't even want to answer the phone calls because answering the phone call meant I was responsible.
Yeah, there's a lot of ego in that, thinking that you can do it. Even in saying, like, it's my responsibility, think about the position that you have a positionality with that.
I've created some interesting
relationships. Yeah, I am not responsible for your anything.
It's all just exploding. All I can tell you is that my whole life has exploded. This was
so important for you. I'm so glad to be a witness.
Like it actually. So far, nothing that is of my past, which I'm going to call it my past because it isn't.
Yeah,
each day I haven't operated like that.
Yeah. I'm going to turn this off in 30 seconds.
Sure.
Give
everything has just changed without doing anything but taking my responsibility back.
Yeah, and it started with eat to hunger, have no shame and guilt.
Pretty much.
It pretty much unraveled like a...
And it wasn't until you said, Elise, go ahead and eat whatever you want. Just eat when you're hungry.